is over here, and then the San Antonio pool is this area up to New Braunfels, and then the San Marcos is a separate pool. This is essentially the diagram that I have on the front page of your handout. What we observe in terms of the flow of the water through the aquifer, it's essentially flowing to the east and then a bit north. So the water that actually we get in the recharge zone in Bexar County, that water is not withdrawn at Bexar County. That water actually travels north here to New Braunfels and then up to San Marcos. The water that we use here is really coming from over here. Hondo probably would be a reasonable location, and it's flowing then in this direction.
So the recharge in Hondo is actually filling the aquifer underneath San Antonio?
That's the water that we withdraw.
I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
Now, Dr. Freed, the reason it flows that direction is about like a tilt. Oh, sorry. It's okay. Tilt in the...
There's a gradient, yes. Yeah, in that direction. So the Edwards Aquifer is physically at a higher elevation and then lower elevation as you go to San Marcos. It was gravity driven.
Now you said it flows slightly north.
Well, when it gets here, it's essentially going east, and then at San Antonio, it turns up to the northeast.
Is that a lower elevation?
It's constantly lower elevation all the way up to
San Marcos.
San Marcos.
Lower elevation up to San Marcos, so it travels.
Do we have a GPS?
Hondo.
I thought you had it there.
You were really late.
Is 2% there. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, we have 29 degrees 42 minutes north latitude, 98 degrees 8 minutes west longitude. It just cut off. That's it. Anybody get an elevation? Elevation. 623 I've got. 623.
Wow.
Well, we are kind of down in a... looking at
What time is it? About 2?
Well, it's no.
109.
110.
1:10.
Hot.
Well, they said pot. I was like, what?
Oh, what do I need pictures of you?
The spring flowing.
Yeah.
You're right over there. This is normally it's very shallow right now. You can get over there, take a picture of it.
Okay.
Just bubble in the bubble.
No.
Let me move. This is one of the main springs, and this flows into Landa Lake, which is just on the other side of this area. And then Landa Lake is drained by the Comal River, which flows about 1 mile into the Guadalupe River. The Comal River is one of the shortest rivers in Texas, about 1 mile long. The Landa Lake gets all of its water from the spring flow. So everything going down the Comal River is spring water. And as it comes out, it's about 72 degrees all the time. Now, we're looking right here at a major fault location. And the fault is running to the northeast southwest. Notice you came down California Boulevard here, you were actually coming down off of the main rock down to where we are. This is a normal fault. The displacement on the fault is about 800 feet. So the unit that we're standing on here has moved down relative to the unit over there where fall is located. So that is the footwall, right? And this is the hanging wall. We're standing here on the hanging wall. And that deep area right there is the footwall. And the water is coming out of that footwall.
And the water is coming out of the football.
The unit that you're looking at over there is part of the Edwards group. It's in the Person formation. And if you look at your chart, this is the bottom member of the Person formation. It's called the regional dense member. So that's where Rudy is moving around. That's the regional dense member.
The regional dense.
Not Rudy, we're talking about.
He called you dense.
We label Rudy.
We got it.
So this means that in the first field trip we took and the field trip today, you have seen 5 of the 7 members within the Edwards group. And the ones that you have not seen are the top member in the Person formation and also the top member in the Kaner formation. All of the others you have seen.
You know what we would find there? The top one.
I don't know where they're exposed. I thought we'd done good just to find these. Now, along this fault, we have a series of 9 individual springs. This is the most southern of all of them. There's another spring just on the other side of the road. In fact, that spring feeds right into that little wading pool that the kiddos are enjoying. There's a third spring just a short distance to the northeast. These 3 springs are the only ones that are flowing directly out of the Edwards. The other 6 springs are flowing from the hanging wall region. There's water at depth 800 feet or so below it, and that's coming up along the fault to feed the lake. About half of the water that is contained within that Edwards limestone, about half of it is flowing on up to San Marcos. The other half is exiting out in the springs that you see below it. Now, this is one of the lowest that I've ever seen this flow. It's pretty meager. The Edwards Aquifer Authority at the present time has control over what's being withdrawn. The Edwards Aquifer Authority has been set up by the state because the fish and wildlife groups in the federal government have jurisdiction over all of the water. And I have up online a discussion of the legal aspects. I have a discussion on this handout that I provided for you for the trip. I don't want to go back and rehash all of that. But it essentially comes down to maintaining the species that are existing within the spring water. And the fountain darter is the primary one. In the mid-1950s, that's the last major drought, and we're starting to challenge that drought in terms of its effect. But in the 1950s, this area dried up completely, and the fountain darter went extinct in this spring. Fortunately, it still was living in San Marcos Springs. So they took some of the fountain darters once the water came back on here and have reseeded them so that they're back into this area. If the fountain darter goes extinct here, that's what the feds call a taking, and that's a big no-no. If there's a taking, the feds might shut off all federal funds into the San Antonio area. That means all of the military, all of the federal money going to education, all the federal money going to housing, they have the power to do that. So that's why it's a big issue. At present, in San Antonio, we're in stage 2 of the pumping restrictions for the Edwards. Stage 2 means that you have to reduce your withdrawal from a normal withdrawal by at least 30%. And that's what we've been living in for much of the past year. Last week, the Edwards Aquifer Authority declared a stage 3. That means that everybody within the San Antonio, what they call the San Antonio pool, if you have a license to withdraw water from the aquifer, you have to now withdraw up to 35%. You can cut back 35% in your withdrawal. The Hondo pool, that I pointed out that far to the west, the Uvalde pool. The Uvalde pool is under stage 5 restrictions, which means that they have to reduce their pumping 44%, which is really hurting the farmers in that area because they use that water for irrigation. You'll note that here in New Braunfels, they are under the stage 3 watering restrictions, which was every 2 weeks that you can water once a week, once every 2 weeks. In San Antonio, the SAWS is still maintaining stage 2, so you can water once every week. But the San Antonio water system has to follow the withdrawal rules from the Edwards Aquifer Authority. So the withdrawal has been reduced another 5% in the San Antonio area. They haven't changed the requirements for our watering needs because they feel that they're getting some water from Canyon Lake, they're getting some water from the Trinity Aquifer, which is mainly in the southern part, a little bit in the north, but they're getting additional sources. Plus, they argue that the conservation effects of the users in the San Antonio area have improved the conditions for the aquifer. So even though the entire San Antonio district is under stage 3, the individual suppliers of water to the municipalities can decide to stay on stage 2, depending upon their own special needs. The outlook is not getting much better for the coming months or so. Remember we talked about the El Nino and La Nina. If we can get the change to El Nino, that would be a plus for us.
Yes.
That's correct. We're in the La Nina now. How much what?
Any rain.
Well, that last big rain we had in July, that raised the aquifer, the water table level 17 feet in 2 days. So it can change drastically. Right now, we're below 640. We're in the 630s.
Do they change that daily?
I don't know how often they do that. But their water table level here in the New Braunfels is different than ours because of the difference in the elevation of the aquifer.
So we would look at the wells where they how the colonies, but near San Antonio to know what the water is doing.
Yes, they have the J5, I think, at Fort Sam Houston. That's what they use for the... Okay.
What is the rock face? The 2 rock faces that we're looking at? Is it Monroe and Sunset?
Well, that's Edwards over there.
Edwards and
We're higher than that. The Edwards is below us, which means the Glen Rose is below the Edwards, so it's really deep. I have not been able to find in the literature what units are existing here, but they're much younger than the Edwards.
Oh yeah, I saw them. Oh, that was probably yeah. So, but sometimes like I'm looking, and I see there's like all of a sudden there's these big bubbles.
yeah.
Yeah, you're staring at that too. All of a sudden, you just see like
effervescent,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. And I look to see if there's fish or something, but I don't see any fish. So I'm wondering if is it like a underground gas? No, I see the fish, but where those bubbles come up?
they're coming from right there. Look, all those
Oh,
bubbles.
they come out all of a sudden. See how that? See
Yeah,
how
you're getting seepage from the, that's part of the spring system.
it comes up a little bit from pressure, right? Like all of a sudden, big pressure comes up. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I kept watching. I was like, there's yeah.
Oh yeah, rush of like ice, cold water, yeah. But it's coolness and he's dead. Yeah.
Can you guys get a good look into there or not from where you are? To take a picture?
Yeah.
You can? To take a picture?
So we're on the I don't know what we're on, but
I got a picture. I'm getting attacked by something.
There was a picture. I saw a temple over there.
Big river underneath that rock right there.
I'm sure they have a record of what the units are, but I have not
See it. He's on.
Yeah, he's underneath the
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
What is it? So I don't see that.
See him? Straight down.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
The white one?
No.
This is artificial.
Yeah, that brown and white one.
Oh, there he is. That's not the one. Oh, there's. Oh, I see that.
Actually, up there.
Remember last year when I went to that horrible place? It was so hot. And they had those
little snail things in that Bernie wildlife. That was like, oh yes you do, because we had two. And they had all that field.
Oh, that place. Oh, yes. Just say Chigger's on it.
That little pond, there was those little ponds. You know?